Aegwynn was trained in magic by the Guardian Magnus Cavell. Of the 5 apprentices, she was the only girl, and was often treated unfairly by the others. They claimed Aegwynn could never become a wizard, but she persevered. Before the end of her first year as apprentice, she had mastered the lost incantations of the Meter Scrolls, the last surviving work of one of the powerful highborn wizards from 9,000 years earlier. Human mages were dissuaded from even reading the scrolls until well into their careers, and even Keldarai couldn't read them until a decade into their apprenticeships. For this feat, for mastering the scrolls, she was chosen to succeed Scavel as Guardian of Tirisfal. Through skill and determination, Aegwynn proved to be the best and most deserving among her peers, and the Guardian could not afford to be anything less. Once the power of the Tirisfallen was bestowed upon her, she began her work immediately. As she did her duty as the Guardian, battling demonic threats where she could, something about Meter, the author whose scrolls she had mastered, always perplexed her. While studying his writings, she realized that the elf had wielded immense power, more than any regular sorcerer should have been capable of, and in time she became obsessed with finding out how. Aegwynn discovered another series of lost scrolls written by Meter. They described an arcane being named Aluneth in detail, and even included spells the elf had used to tap into the being's power. Aegwynn believed she could use Aluneth as a formidable weapon against the Burning Legion. Yet, unlike Meter, she would not simply tap into the entity's energies. She would bring the being into Azeroth and bind it to her will. Aegwynn summoned Aluneth with ease, but it would not obey her commands. The fickle creature thrashed against the Guardian's containment magics and nullified her spellwork. Aegwynn reveled in the challenge of taming Aluneth. After many setbacks, Aegwynn finally bound the entity to an enchanted great staff.
You are ambitious, child.
The task of containing Aluneth was done, but it would take the Guardian years to truly harness its power. 823 years before the First War, Aegwynn traveled to the world's roof, Northrend, in order to defeat a hunting party of demons that was stalking one of the last surviving dragonflights, draining these ancient creatures of their innate magic. With the help from these noble dragons, Aegwynn confronted and eradicated the demons opposing them. Yet, as the last demon was banished from the mortal world, a great storm erupted throughout the north. An enormous dark visage appeared in the sky above Northrend. Sargeras, the demon king and lord of the Burning Legion, appeared before Aegwynn and bristled with hellish energy. He informed the young Guardian that the time of Tirisfal was about to come to an end, and that the world would soon bow before the onslaught of the Legion. The proud Aegwynn, believing herself to be a match for the menacing god, unleashed her powers against Sargeras' avatar. With disconcerting ease, Aegwynn battered the demon lord with her powers, and succeeded in killing his physical shell. Aegwynn raised Aluneth high and called down a storm of arcane magic to annihilate Sargeras. Nothing happened. The entity bound to Aegwynn's weapon resisted her command. As she struggled to assert her will over Aluneth, Sargeras launched a furious assault against the Guardian. Ultimately, Aegwynn put Aluneth aside and opted for a more reliable weapon. She summoned Atiesh, great staff of the Guardian, passed from Guardian to Guardian, and renewed her attack against Sargeras. With the help of the dragons, Aegwynn battled and ultimately defeated the Lord of the Legion. Following this historic event, Aegwynn, by her own admission, grew arrogant and cocky. She felt that she no longer needed to act as the Council willed, that she had done the impossible, and thus she, not the Tirisfallen, would choose the next Guardian. Aegwynn would never know that she had done exactly as Sargeras had planned. Sargeras, at the time of his corporeal death, had transferred his spirit into Aegwynn's weakened body. Unbeknownst to the Guardian, Sargeras would remain cloaked within the darkest recesses of her soul for many long years. Within Aegwynn, Sargeras was slowly twisting her thoughts. Aegwynn became more distant from the Council. He amplified fears she had already had about them. They had been using their powers to manipulate the politics of the Eastern Kingdoms, and they believed they had the power to prevent war suffering for the greater good. However, Aegwynn believed the constant manipulations would end in disaster. She decided to not relinquish her role as Guardian, for fear that the Council could elect a weaker individual in her place, a Guardian they could control and manipulate. They did not completely approve of her decision to keep the title of the Guardian, but they allowed it for a time. Over centuries, her relationship with the Council would become more and more distant. Hidden from the Council's watchful eye, Aegwynn constructed the Tower of Karazhan with Aluneth. The tower acted as a siphon of ley lines, channels of immense power that coursed through the planet. Aegwynn could gain power from them if needed. She would use the tower as a refuge when avoiding the Council of Tirisfal. With centuries, as older members of the Council passed, new younger ones would join. As these new members wanted to force Aegwynn to give up her powers, they formed the Tirisguard, an order of magi armed with ancient relics they could use to subdue her. For years, the Tirisguard had searched for Aegwynn until they found her refuge at Karazhan. She sealed Karazhan so the Council could never gain control of its secrets, and fled to the ruined city of Suramar, where she would hide for hundreds of years, all the while keeping an eye on the Council of Tirisfal. At one point in time, Aegwynn was found and confronted by Tarthan of the Tirisguard in Stranglethorn Vale. The duel between them had been one of the greatest to ever occur between a Tirisguard and the Renegade Guardian, but it was also one of the shortest. Aegwynn's opponent bore the great staff Ebonchill, which was reported stolen some months prior. Upon unleashing the weapon's stored power on Aegwynn, she turned the energy back at him through a counterspell, encasing him in a layer of diamond-hard ice. Despite Stranglethorn's hot weather, Tarthan was still frozen solid when he was found, and it took the Council considerable effort to thaw his corpse and free Ebonchill from his lifeless hands. On occasion, Aegwynn would leave Suramar to keep an eye on the Council's movements. It was one of these times that she was finally caught by the Tirisguard Magi, Nihilus Aran. Over the course of several months, the two came at odds. However, the fighting would end when both realized each other's true nature. Aran learned that Aegwynn was not the treacherous rebel the Council made him think she was, and she learned that Aran also loathed political manipulations the Council had been carrying out. It was not long before the two fell in love, and agreed they must work together to prevent the Council from controlling the next Guardian. In time, they decided to create an heir to whom Aegwynn could pass on the title and power of the Guardian. Soon thereafter, Aegwynn gave birth to a son she named Medivh. She locked her powers and knowledge of the Council within the boy, allowing them to manifest only upon maturity. Aegwynn soon left Medivh in Aran's care. She went into hiding, watching her beloved Medivh from afar. In time, Aegwynn planned to bequeath Aluneth to her son. Sadly, that day was not meant to come. But that is a story for another time.
I am infinite. You are not as powerful as she who came before.